right, so for the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to stay with you and talk about these storms, walk you through them as they continue to move through the region. The good news and bad news. The bad news is these things are holding together for the most part. There's already been reports of damage in our local area. Those damage reports are going to be continue to become more common, I think, as people get out behind these storms.
Strong storms move through our area tonight with wind speeds up to 80 miles per hour. You can see the storm as it moved through some parts of our areas tonight.
Absolutely. The storms knocked out power for around 40,000 people in Indiana and Michigan, snapped and uprooted trees and damaged some property. We also have pictures and video from the ground that many viewers have sent in. You can see a tree on a car right there. We really appreciate these pictures. It really helps Matt out. You can see some trees down there. Wsbt 22's Max Lewis standing by right now to show us some of that damage. But first, let's go to Chief Meteorologist Matt Rudkin in the Forecast Center. Matt, the worst of it is over for tonight.
Yeah, it's all over. We don't have anything left. You can see it off into Ohio, but a wider view will show you what happened. It was really impressive. This was a derecho. What's that mean? It started here in the Dakotas, came through Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, and then Michigan and Indiana. Several hundred miles of destruction in its wake. Here at home, I mean, a lot of you got hit really hard. Let me step out of the way. I also have a few pictures I want to show. This is Mentone down in Kosciuszko County. Ann sends this. The ballpark down there just lifted up essentially and tossed back down. Straight line winds can do just as much damage as a tornado, but on a much wider scale. Here's a look at New Buffalo. This was the storm coming in. What you see there is what we call a shelf cloud. That's rain-cooled air and that really gusty wind that physically pushes the cloud down. It rolls overhead, and as it does, you deal with the gusty winds. And then that teal color there is rain. It pours for about a half hour or so. Once these storms got out of here, at least we saw a little bit of sunshine. Wasn't that nice? This picture from Niles. Big thanks to Dave for that. Over the coming hours, temperatures here in the 70s. Want to talk a little bit more about these storms that happened tonight, but also want to continue focusing ahead on what's coming up the next few days. All of that in just a few minutes.
I think a tornado went through my neighbor's house. Holy cow. His trees are obliterated. His grain bins blew over. Jeez. His barn blew over. That was a barn with the grain bins. Holy cow. It's like 4 miles from my house. And there's the path of the tornado or something. Jeepers. Well, he didn't get blown away.
Now, that video was sent to us from Ashton Wood in Wakarusa. You can hear in the video that he believes a tornado went through a field and destroyed his neighbor's barn.
That damage is impressive. Wakarusa was one of the hardest hit areas. Madison Township firefighters were out helping with cleanup after that storm. Wsbt 22's Max Lewis is live just west of Wakarusa for us tonight. And Max, several homes in that area had severe wind damage.
Yeah, they sure did, Dane and Todd. It's quite extensive around here. But I really want to show you, the thing, believe it or not, that tells the big story is the corn. Because look at this. These stalks, about as tall as me, they are on the ground all over the place. They're flattened. And this appears to be where some huge gust of wind or something came through, because there is just a path that goes all the way back there. You can't see it because it's dark, but it just goes all the way back and down this way. Looks almost like a boulder was dropped in and just rolled down the street here and across the street. Now, the really big thing is there's this damage at this farm, the Lehman family farm right here. You can see the trees, all of this, all from these really strong winds that just came through this area. And bear with me here for a second. I want to take us a little bit over here because like that video you guys showed just to open up our piece, the things that he was talking about, these grain silos, look how big those are. I'd estimate they're probably 20 feet at least. 3 of those, they're now gone. They're lying in a pile of rubble back there. Again, it's dark and it's hard to see. And there's also that barn over there. That's completely gone. All of that stuff completely exposed. Now, I want to take you to some video that we shot earlier today. The family had several friends and neighbors come and try and clean up what they could. They also had the chimney, believe it or not, knocked off the roof of their house, and one of those trees actually fell onto one of the family cars. Here's how the homeowner described what had happened when the storm came through.
I'm looking out the window with my boys, and there's this huge gust of wind. I'm like, we have to get out of here now. I grabbed them both by the arms and just ran into the other room and just ducked for cover. My husband had just gotten in the garage with the mower, and he was trying to close the garage door, and a tree came down, another tree came down, and a tree came down in the back door, so he couldn't even get out. We're on the phone with each other screaming that there's the barn that's down, there's 3 bins that are down, there's crap that's gone. I mean, just everything's gone.
And the Lehman family was really got the brunt of it, but just down the street, several of their neighbors got some damage too. Several people lost very old, healthy trees. One guy told me that there were some from the 1950s. They are now completely gone, as well as some large patches of shingles from their roof.
We were drinking our coffee, and all of a sudden it started raining and blowing, and it blew through here like a freight train, and by the time we got in the house, it was over.
And there were tornado warnings, I should say, issued for this area. But again, nothing is confirmed at the moment. We do know that the National Weather Service is going to be sending out crews to survey this damage, and they will be able to officially determine whether or not it was a tornado that came through here or just some really, really strong winds. For now, I'm live in Wakarusa. Max Lewis, WSBT 22 News.
It's a beautiful day to clean up a mess.
People are here to help. They, don't ask twice. They just come and help us. It's amazing.
Almost 24 hours after a powerful storm just blew through, people in our area still picking up the pieces.
Yeah, they definitely are. The storm packed quite a punch with 2 different tornadoes being reported. It damaged buildings, downed trees, and knocked out power. Take a look here at the latest report from Indiana Michigan Power. Right now, there are more than 22,000 customers who do not have power. We're talking all the way from Lakeville to Bangor. Now, there are also reported outages in the Fort Wayne area.
And just an hour ago, our team put Drone 22 up in the air to get a bird's eye view of some of that damage. You can see the path of the storms that tore through that field and then hit the grain bins and some barns.
Yeah, we have team coverage for you tonight here at 5 as we are following up on the areas most severely impacted by last night's storm.
But first, we want to get to Chief Meteorologist Matt Rudkin, who tracked the storm all last night for us. Matt, the National Weather Service determined there.
Exactly. So let's focus on that first, and then I want to give an overall summary of what happened. There was 2. One was in far southern St. Joseph County. It happened around the intersection of Dogwood and Riley, far southern parts of the county in Madison Township. Went about 3 miles or so. Thankfully, there's a lot of farm fields down here. I know those of you who live down there, though, it's not so rural, right, when it's your house. Did do some damage to some farm equipment, some silos and whatnot out that way. It was rated an EF1 tornado by the National Weather Service with maximum winds around 110 miles an hour. The other one was in North Webster. And this was a lucky one, too, that was just north of town. It started on the west side of State Road 13, impacted a church, did a little damage there, and then stayed over wooded area over North Webster. It's very lucky this happened and not a mile south, because if you've been down this way, right along Lake Webster, there's a ton of houses, obviously, around the lake, which would have been much worse. But it was a little bit farther north, went through wooded area, maximum wind speed with that about 90 miles an hour. Outside of that, there was a lot of wind damage, and I don't want to discount that because I know a lot of you have seen issues. And keep in mind, this is just computer-generated storm reports here. I know there's a lot of areas that don't have blue dots that saw damage. Pulaski County, Cass County, good chunk of Elkhart County had a lot of issues that aren't on here. But I wanted to show you the overall picture. This was a derecho is what we call them. It was a huge wind event that spread across the Midwest and Great Lakes. There it is. It started in the Dakotas, went through Iowa, Illinois, slammed into our area, and then dissipated as it moved into Ohio. So I'm well aware a lot of you have to do a lot of cleanup. It costs a lot. It takes a ton of time to get all that cleaned up. Good news is I've got some good weather for you over the coming days to get some of that work done. Temperatures in the 80s now, falling to the low 70s later on this evening. I'll talk about when you may need to start looking up to the sky for the next chance for some storms coming up here in just a few minutes.
All right, we'll see you then, Matt. Thank you. You know, parts of Michigan were hit hard by that storm. Take a look at this. These are some photos that have been shared with WSBT 22. This tree fell in Buchanan. We have a team in Berrien County right now, and we'll have a report on more damage for you tonight at 10 and 11.
And our team coverage continues with WSBT 22's Caroline Torrey, who's just outside of Wakarusa. And Caroline, there are multiple spots of destruction along County Road 44.
Todd, I saw at least 4 properties in just a couple of mile stretch on this east-west running road with significant damage to buildings and farm equipment. So take a look at your screen, new at 5 tonight. Look at this video of what was a storage and machine shed. The middle of the building is no longer there. The storm tore right through it, ripping the walls up from the foundation. The farmer also saw one of his corn bins crumpled. Less than 2 miles east on the same road, this homeowner reports heavy damage to trees, a shed, and grain bin. Amy Lehman says she estimates a few $100,000 of damage there. She's thankful neighbors, friends, and even some strangers came out to help her family clean up starting early this morning.
People are like, how are you not more shaken up? I'm like, my children are fine, my husband's fine, my family's fine. Nothing else matters. This is just stuff. It can all be replaced.
She says she heard some people on social media call the storm disappointing, but she wants those people to look in her yard to see some of the devastating effects from it. Live outside of Wakarusa, I'm Caroline Torrey, Wsbt 22 News.
That storm has left many people cleaning up in Mentone as well. WSBT 22's DJ Manu continues our team coverage with a look at how the storm took out a Little League baseball field.
I'm standing in center field, but these bleachers used to be back there by the third base dugout. It was lifted up and thrown over here along with several chunks of wood. Looking around the diamond, all the bleachers were ripped up and mangled. Ann Yates is a former board member of the Mentone Youth League and says they were just installed last year. The dugouts and fence are also blown over or bent. Another field has mostly downed trees and a bent fence. Luckily, the Little League season is over, but the president says cleanup will have to be quick since other activities are scheduled to use this field later this week. He's hoping insurance will be able to cover the repairs. It's a tough sight for Yates to see, but she says members of her softball team she coaches are planning to come out this Saturday to help with the cleanup.
A lot of us spend a lot of time here during the summers. You know, this is our home, our second home. And then when something like this, but I mean, we have a great community. It'll get back to where we want it to be.
Now, this field is right next to one of the hardest hit neighborhoods here in Mentone. Coming up at 6, I'll show you the extent of the damage and how one man was actually outside when everything was falling around him. In Mentone, DJ Manu, WSBT 22 News.
People with a lot of damage to their properties aren't surprised to hear a tornado caused it.
That's right. WSBT 22's Caroline Torrey is live southwest of Wakarusa, where some spots were hit really hard. This is along County Road 44. And Caroline, a lot of damage around that area.
Jennifer, I stopped at a couple of farms along this road and the effects still linger right now. People disrupted their Tuesday routines to clean up after the storm and meet with their insurance agents. And while it's a devastating blow, they're thankful that all are safe.
It's been home.
But after last night's tornado, now Robert Weldy's home has a lot of extra work that needs to be done. 3 buildings on his farm are really damaged, and so are his grain bins.
The house, it's minor, but that stuff's expensive.
A lot of expensive damage also happening just across the street on Casey Weldy's property.
The house has moved. We're not sure what the damage is yet, but it's not good.
The story's the same at this farm about 3 miles east. This machine shed almost looks like it was cut in half, and this corn bin was crumpled. But tasks at the farm must continue, even as an insurance agent assesses the scene. About a mile away, neighbors, friends, and even strangers came to work to help Amy Lehman's family pick up the pieces today.
They just showed up and started helping, and this is why we live in the country. People are here to help. They, don't ask twice. They just come and help us. It's amazing.
Part of their work, gathering tree debris and tossing it into the fire. But as some of those things burn and will disappear into ashes, the people who were devastated by the storm are thankful for what and who remains.
Thankful and humbled. This is just stuff. This all can be replaced. Our family's fine. Our neighbors are fine. Don't take it for granted.
House is replaceable. We can get a new house. Can't get new kids. I mean, that's not easy to do that way.
No one got hurt in the whole community, so we're grateful.
Casey says this has been already a rough year with the pandemic, but like everything else, they'll get through it. Live here outside of Wakarusa, I'm Caroline Torrey, Wsbt 22 News.